Hello and welcome to the Waynesburg Effect, the only political show here on WCTV. Today, our panelists will be diving into three topics. We will start with the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court and what his impact could be. Then we'll switch gears to the new climate change report that was issued this week and what action should be taking place. Finally, we will start wrapping up with the Nikki Haley's exit as a UN ambassador and what her future might look like. I'm Emily Bennett, your host, joined on the desk by Drew Rhea, Dakota Kiefer, and Jared Weicker. Relax and get comfortable and enjoy some heated debates here on the Waynesburg Effect. Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed last week to the Supreme Court in one of the most controversial hearings in history. Now that he's officially a Supreme Court justice, is this good or bad for the Supreme Court after so much controversy? Dakota, what do you think?
Honestly, the process was absolutely grueling, and for the most part, it was an embarrassment for the country to have to go through this. It really puts America, makes them in a bad name in a sense around the world when you have a Supreme Court justice, a nominee at least, being testified against for sexual harassment, and then you have the woman, Ford, who was testifying, who got blatantly mocked by President Trump afterwards and during, which is interesting because President Trump said at the beginning that he found her to be credible, and then in a rally he mocked her. So he did get confirmed, and in the end, for Republicans, it's a good thing for the Supreme Court. There is now a right-wing majority in the Supreme Court. So that's a good thing for them, but I want to dive in a little bit onto what this means for midterms, because while it looks like it's a good thing for the Supreme Court, and it is at the time, midterms I think might be a different story because there are a lot of people, even Republicans, who weren't for Kavanaugh, and that might have an impact on midterms. Just a couple numbers that I'm going to throw out here. There was an 18-point drop in net support by Republican women. Also, a poll showed that Americans opposing the confirmation was 48 to 42, and 55% of the opposing people in that poll were women, and most of those women were Democratic women. And this is something that I talked about in a previous episode of the Waynesburg Effect, is that I think the key in the midterms for Democrats to go out and take control of the House is to show up and vote. They need all the voters they can get. And I think this is something that has fired up Democrats, Democratic women in particular, when they see this woman being scrutinized for coming out with her story. And that's something that's going to, I mean, if there's other women that have been sexually assaulted, that's going to make them not want to come out with their story. And I think Democratic women see this, and Democrats in general, and they're going to want to come out at midterms and show their voice and that they are going to be heard. And I think that'll be key for the Democrats. In fact, while it's a bad thing for Democrats that he is in the Supreme Court now and there's a right-wing majority, I think it will help them out along the lines in midterms.
I don't think it's honestly, yes, I think Democratic women are really, obviously they're very fired up, but Republican women are also fired up. Any women in general are very fired up about this topic because so many people have been affected by this. 1 in 3 women, have gone through an experience like that. So I think it's honestly, it's not going to benefit the Republicans as much, but I do think that this is going to benefit midterms a lot because I think a lot more people going into midterms are so fired up and we're really talking about political issues, and I think that's going to really draw people to the polls this year.
And if there were people that weren't going to vote, I think they're going to vote now just after this whole debacle. They want to make their voices heard, whether they're for Kavanaugh or against him. I think people want to make their voices heard and don't want to be shut out.
Well, I'm just going to back up and start right off the bat. The Brett Kavanaugh trial was unfair and disgraceful. He's a highly respected man, and I think he will make a great Supreme Court justice. He's a man of integrity and will interpret the Constitution in a fair and just way. I mean, there's a group that pledged money, over $1 million, to get Senator Susan Collins of Maine to vote no for confirming Kavanaugh by the Democrats. They said if she would vote no to not let Kavanaugh get the court, they would give her the money, but if she said yes, they would back people running against her. This is just total lunacy. The Democratic mob, yes, that's what they are. They're a mob trying to discriminate against Kavanaugh and just create total chaos in Congress. This is ridiculous.
I agree with you, Jared. I think the whole process was insane, between both parties. But I want to look a little bit at what I believe Kavanaugh's role will be on the Supreme Court. Looking forward, what will be his legacy. He has a lot of positives going in. He's considered a textualist by a majority of the legal world. He will interpret the Constitution the way it was written and look at it as a dead document instead of a living document that evolves. So I think that looks good for him and for conservatives overall. A couple negatives, however, strong supporter of the Patriot Act, which a lot of Republicans were in favor of, but many conservatives don't like. It takes away privacy and due process rights guaranteed by the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. And one of the biggest issues with Kavanaugh was his strength on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. A lot of conservatives did not like this choice because he's weak on the Fourth and Fifth. So I think overall he will be a conservative ruler on the court. However, his rulings on government power are very worrisome. So I think conservatives, while many are happy about Kavanaugh being confirmed, I think they should have a little bit of doubt still.
And another thing that I want to look at, I think this just proves Donald Trump will never go back on anything that he says, or if anyone that he's going to nominate. He was never going to go back on Kavanaugh because it was who he nominated, and he was going to go down swinging with Kavanaugh. And in the end, Trump did win. What was really a disgrace for me, even if you don't believe Ford, or even if you think it wasn't Kavanaugh that did this to Ford, the scrutiny that she got, and yes, Kavanaugh got it too, but the scrutiny that she got was unwarranted because you don't know if she's telling the truth, and it's unfair to completely scrutinize her. And yes, the President of the United States was one of those people who went out on a rally and mocked her statement and mocked everything she said. And if everything that she said was true, or even if part of it's true, you're just telling young women that they can't come out with their stories, especially if they're stories against famous people or political figures, because they're just going to get scrutinized and their lives are going to be ruined because of this, because you're going to be scrutinized. People are going to look at you differently. And I just don't think that's a good mindset for a young woman to have. And I think it's a bad precedent that is being set, no matter if she's innocent no matter if he is innocent or not. It's a bad precedent that's being set for young women, in particular those who have been sexually assaulted. They're already ashamed to share their stories, and now they're going to be afraid to share their stories as well.
Why would Trump not go down swinging with Kavanaugh? I mean, if he abandoned Kavanaugh, what does that say? It says that when the Democrats try to come against Republicans, that they can win. I mean, we need people in Congress that have backbones to stand up to the Democrats. Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, he's a warrior for the Republicans, and it was nice to see somebody in the Republican side of the debate take the side of the Republicans and stand up to the Democrats.
I know Trump was going to stay by Kavanaugh. It's just the way he did it. It's the mocking. And we've seen him do that, like even when he was campaigning, he did this as well. And this has been something that, I can go either way with Trump, but the thing I really do not like about Trump is when he does stuff like that, when he mocks. You can't do that. I
mean, it's something that really didn't surprise me. I mean, he mocked a disabled reporter before. That's just the personality of Donald Trump, and a lot of that is the reason that he was elected. They knew that he's just going to do his own thing. He's going to be Donald Trump no matter what. I just found it funny that he said that Ford seemed to be credible, and then all of a sudden out at a rally, he's mocking her. I just think that's a disgrace for the President of the United States to be doing to someone.
Well, we see him all the time. He runs things differently than in the past. I mean, we obviously came from Barack Obama, who handled things very respectfully manner, especially he wasn't as on the social media scene, and now we have a president that's very much on that social media scene and maybe saying things he probably shouldn't. But that's going to wrap it up about Kavanaugh, but we come back, we are going to dive into climate change right here on the Waynesburg Effect.
There are little things that you can do to help you when you're driving a car, but the one thing that you shouldn't do when driving a car is texting and driving. In fact, at any given time throughout the day, approximately 660,000 drivers are attempting to use their phones while behind the wheel of an automobile. And 11 teens die every day as a result of texting while driving. According to the National Safety Council, 25% of all automobile crashes are related to cell phone use. Don't text and drive.
Rough day, huh? Hey, rough day, huh? Maybe this will make you feel better. I made some apple fritters. Welcome home.
Thank you. I really needed this today.
Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. The Intergovernmental Panel issued this year's climate change report. It has been called shocking and concerning. What action should be taking place after seeing this report? Jared, what are your thoughts?
Well, the action should be an uproar. Al Gore, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Bill Nye the Science Guy are all frauds. None of these people know anything about what they claim. Bill Nye majored in chemical engineering in Cornell University. How is he claiming to be a scientist and know what he's talking about? This is ridiculous. Man-made climate change is an opinion to the very core of the argument, and it's a political scheme to take advantage of people. Bill Nye has faked and called Climate 101 his video on YouTube. He put CO2 in a jar and put a bright light on it and tried to show the jar heated up because of the CO2, but a TV meteorologist, Anthony Watts, proved this experiment to be fake. The Earth has been getting warmer since the 1950s, which is true, but it's not because of humans. The Earth goes through natural cycles of warming and cooling. The Washington Post and other major media bias sources are behind this and keep adding to the list of despicable actions that they take every day to advance their propaganda.
I think to try and dispute this at this point is absolutely ridiculous. Climate change is real. It was called global warming at a point, and then they took that back and called it climate change. But it's absolutely real, man-made or not. But if you go out and breathe in the smoke or the fossil fuel, go buy fossil fuel when it's burning and see how you feel. It's not good. If it's not good for you, it can't be good for the environment. And the climate is absolutely changing, and there's no dispute about that. The ice caps are melting, storms are getting stronger. Look at the past couple years in America with the hurricanes. They're outrageous. You had Hurricane Harvey, which was torrential downpours over Texas. Then you had Florence, which was a torrential downpour over the Carolinas. It wasn't even the wind that was the factor, it was the rain. And then, just a couple of days ago, it was Michael, the strongest hurricane in the past several years to make landfall in the United States. It was a Category 4, and why it was caused? Warm waters, because the waters were abnormally warm for this time of the year. The Gulf of Mexico was 84 degrees. Hurricane Michael at one point was a Category 1, gradually turning into a Category 2, then all of a sudden overnight it's a Category 4, and it's only 2 miles per hour short of a Category 5. These aren't normal cycles. The water being this warm this time of year isn't normal. The ice caps melting isn't normal, and it's absolutely caused by fossil fuel production, and it's not good for the environment. And there's things that we need to do. There's things that we as people need to do, and it's also corporations that need to take a stand against this too. But it's going to be hard pressed to try and have these corporations change their mind when they're making so much money from the fossil fuel production.
See, Dakota, I like what you said about people sort of walking back on the term global warming, because climate change is absolutely natural. It happens over time. I brought this graph. If I don't know if we can see it here, but basically it shows the temperature over back 400,000 years of up and down. We're on an upswing right now. These things happen all the time over the Earth's history. Here's where we need to look at what to do, because that's the major question. What do we do on this upswing of climate change rather than global warming? It's unfair to expect countries like the United States and China and Russia to put such a precedence on environmental protection that they hinder their economy. And that's what I believe the Paris Climate Accord does, which is why I'm a full supporter of the United States backing out of the Paris Climate Accord. What I would like to see the United States do to tackle this issue is try to create a new climate accord for countries such as themselves and China, who, by the way, pollutes the Earth at twice as high of a rate as the United States, to try and walk China down, because there's no way that countries like China and the United States can bring their pollution levels down to countries like basically Western Europe that just doesn't produce as much pollution as these countries. But if we can at least pull China down to our level and maybe try to lower our levels a little bit, you'd see a great reduction in pollution, which I think would be a huge win.
And I agree with you on that, especially China. I mean, you walk into China, you can tell the pollution that's in the air, and it's hard for them to just stop. It is. But I think in the next couple of years, 20, 25 years, especially with vehicles and cars, I think a lot of cars are going to be electrified, and I think they should. gas is obviously not good for the environment. While it's hard to phase out now because most people have gas-powered cars, electric cars are going to be a thing of the future, whether people like it or not, and they're going to help the environment. Whether you think it's natural or not, it's not good to live in a world where the climate is changing and it causes such intense storms and it kills people. It kills a lot of people. They have to evacuate their homes because these storms get so intense. This also has to do with the large-scale tornado outbreaks we've had and everything of the sort. So another thing, coal power plants, really, I don't know how necessary coal is at this point. This isn't the 1950s. Coal is not as necessary as people want to prove it to be. And I think the fact that there's so many coal power plants, while they are declining gradually, it's still too much in today's day and age. Coal is just not as necessary as it once was.
Well, there have actually been many reports that say that the ice caps and the Arctic is actually expanding pretty rapidly, actually. And hurricanes have decreased 50% in the past 40 to 50 years, the ones that actually hit the United States. Sure that we're seeing many right now, this point in time, but it's actually gone down. And also, Drew, I do agree with you about the Paris Agreement. It's just a total disaster.
Well, I think going back to Drew, too, like, seeing this chart here that you have, the climate does go up and down, and people don't seem to realize that. People are in, like, this past couple years, we've been seeing it going up, but people don't look back and see that the climate does change. There are cycles, like Jared was talking about, there are cycles, it does change. Yes, we're in an upswing, and we have to be, thinking about that and what we can do. And it even goes back to President Trump. He wasn't even aware of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Someone mentioned it to him, and he said, quote, "It was given to me, and I want to look at who drew it. You know which group drew it. I can give you reports that are fabulous, and I can give you reports that aren't so good. So I will be looking at it, absolutely." He didn't even know. So this just shows that even the President of the United States isn't thinking about this and seeing this report that is written by 91 authors from 40 different countries. This isn't just like some random information thrown. This is reports from all over the world, people looking and going into all this different data that we've been collecting. So, I don't know, it's hard to say, like climate change, we always go back and forth with this. I think it is happening now, but I think that we definitely, 50, 60, years from now, we're going to see this reversing and it going, back down again. So we will see. I mean, we could talk about this for a lot longer than this, but when we come back, we are going to talk about Nikki Haley's exit from the UN. Stay tuned.
There's one sound in the morning that everyone hates. But it brings you to one of the most important decisions of your day. Breakfast. Some will decide to skip it, but studies show that eating breakfast to start off your day can help improve your memory and increase test scores.
I got a 35 out of 100, another failed test.
And it can also help keep you awake and focused throughout the day. So when you wake up and have that important decision to make, the choice should be clear. Remember to eat breakfast each and every morning.
Can't wait to have a great start to this day.
I didn't realize what a fine line it is between social drinking and a problem. I hadn't even noticed what was happening, and then he was gone. Hi, honey. He's gone.
We're back on the Woo Effect. The last topic the panel will be discussing is Nikki Haley's resignation as a United States ambassador to the United Nations. What has her impact been on the Trump administration, and where do you think her next step will be? Drew, what do you think?
Okay, so Nikki Haley was 100% a benefit for the Trump administration. It made them look really good. She was confirmed almost immediately as the UN ambassador. Many polls have listed her as one of the most popular politicians in North America as the former South Carolina governor. Quinnipiac did a poll in April of 2018, listed her approval rating in America as 63%. Among that, 75% was her GOP approval, 63% her independent approval, and 55% her approval rating among Democrats, which at the same time, done by the same poll, was as high as Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, both at 55% respectively. She says that she will not run for president in 2020 and will actually campaign for President Trump, which I believe is another big win for the Trump administration. So Nikki Haley, an absolutely a major blessing to this administration. Guys, what do you think?
That's something that I can agree with you on because she was a very good representative for the Trump administration. And in fact, she's one of the few people that Trump has appointed that hasn't made the president lose his mind. She didn't need to be fired. She left under her own power. And that's another thing. There are people saying that this is bad timing for her leaving. But I think for her, it's good timing. She left before midterms. People thought, well, that's a bad thing because she left right before it really got down to it. But it's good for her because if she left after midterms and the Republicans lost the House, well, that would look bad. That would look like she's abandoning the president because things got bad. But that's not the case. Most people in Washington think that she has a presidential run in the future, whether that's 2020 or not. That remains to be seen. She said that it's not going to be 2020. She's not going to run against Donald Trump. And she's also been a huge factor for President Trump's America First policy, which she has been very adamant about. Obviously, he ran his entire campaign on America First, and they're going to make America great again. And she was very adamant on that. So I think her work as an ambassador helped to boost her credentials for a presidential run. She's very popular, even among Democrats. Her approval rating is some 20 points higher than President Trump's. She's done a lot in her time as an ambassador to help boost her credentials. And I do think later along the line, she's going to run for president. Don't know if it's in 2020, 2024, but we'll see.
Yeah, Nikki Haley's done a fantastic job, and the announcement was a surprise to me and a very sad one. She led South Carolina and did a good job, and she also served Mr. Trump, and importantly, as you mentioned, was for America being first. She stood up to countries that we've let taken advantage of us in the past. Haley and the president have put sanctions on North Korea, preventing them from being a threat. They made the relationship with China tense, which it should be, because China thinks they can just run the world, but it's not going to happen. Chemical weapons in Syria have been dealt with, and they overruled the anti-Israel bias of the world and moved our embassy to Israel, which was a huge monumental task that they did. Of course, the theory about her running against Trump, which you guys mentioned earlier, I don't think it will happen, but I think it's interesting because they are known to butt heads, and it's been very public in the past.
I will say Trump, really, you don't see him fully backing someone. He's not someone that throws himself and just never says anything bad about that person. Trump has backed Haley so much, saying she did an incredible job. She's someone who really gets it. And he said that she hopes she will come back to the administration in another capacity. And he told her, you can take your pick. Whatever you want, you can have it.
And here's something I'm going to throw out there that might seem wild. But could we see Donald Trump drop Mike Pence and add her as vice president for his next presidential run? It may seem crazy, it may seem unlikely, but him and Mike Pence don't always agree on things, and it seems like Trump and Haley seem to agree a lot more than he and Pence do on a lot of subjects.
I think people like Haley a lot better than Pence, so I think it could be a good
it would benefit
for
Trump.
him, for sure.
Now, I've heard a different sort of conspiracy theory where President Trump fires Attorney General Jeff Sessions, which is within the realm of possibility, then promotes Senator Lindsey Graham to Attorney General, which would leave South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster to appoint someone who could be Nikki Haley to finish out Graham's term, which I think would be a big, very big improvement for the Trump administration.
Yeah, I think that would be more likely to happen. Sure, the sexy pick, if you want to say, would be to move out Pence, but really they are known to butt heads, Haley and Trump. It could be one of the reasons why she just decided to get phased out before something bad happens.
But we'll see. This is definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on in the coming months and years here on the Waynesburg Effect. When we come back, we're going to wrap this up with our own personal opinions. You're watching the Waynesburg Effect. Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. We're starting to wrap things up here. It's time for topics that kind of get under our skin a little bit. Drew.
Okay, so everyone has the Christmas season completely wrong, okay? The Christmas season is a lot like the NFL season. So you have your regular Christmas season, December 1st through the 25th. But you have to get ready for it. If you go into the Christmas season without preparation, you're doing it all wrong. I mean, look at how NFL players perform when they don't go through the NFL preseason. It's a wreck. So listen, Halloween night, once all the lights are out, kids went home, that's the start of the Christmas preseason. That to Thanksgiving, that's your Christmas preseason. You gotta have all your gifts picked out, you gotta have all your Christmas carols memorized, all of it. It's gotta be ready so that when, Black Friday hits, you're hitting the ground running, celebrating the Christmas season the right way.
I
Dakota.
I like the way you think, but for mine, I'm just going to complain about the MLB playoffs. They haven't been good so far. None of the games have really been close. The Brewers swept the Rockies in dominating fashion, shut out the last 2 games. The Dodgers, if it weren't for an umpire getting offended, would have swept their series, and the Astros swept the Indians, so on and so forth. The Yankees, Red Sox didn't even go to 5 games, 4 games, and this whole entire MLB season, just nothing about it was close or competitive. You have people running away with the divisions. The Brewers and the Cubs was probably the closest division race. The Red Sox had 108 wins, and the Yankees had 100 wins. They won their division by 8 games when the second-place team had 100 wins. So the MLB, I don't know. I don't know what they need to figure out, but first off, the American League is so much better than the National League, and that's something that I think needs to be fixed. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know what you do, but it's really not close, and I think that's a problem for MLB, and it's going to hurt their ratings moving along the line, especially compared to the NFL and NBA that is gradually increasing as well.
Well, those are very 2 interesting rants, but the thing that I'm going to rant about here is the abomination that the NHL calls suspending Tom Wilson 20 games for hitting Oscar Sundqvist. I mean, Don Cherry says it's best. Keep your head from not looking down at the ice, kids. I mean, this was a good hit. Granted, it's preseason, and, he didn't have to do this, and it might be a little stupid, yes. But, I mean, this is ridiculous. He should get 10 games max. Why does the NHL, George Parros, Gary Bettman want to try to make Tom Wilson an example when they have let Brad Marchand slide so many times, not suspending him, and when they do, give him the easy way out? I mean, this is ridiculous. How do you expect hockey to draw more fans when you try to enforce players of this magnitude for these kind of hits? I mean, it wasn't even a bad hit. What is going on with the NHL?
Well, as much as I love ranting about sports, I'm going to switch topics a little bit. Homecoming court. Now, we just had homecoming here at Waynesburg, and I'm not going to debate 2 of my very good friends, one king and queen, but here at Waynesburg University, you nominate yourself for homecoming court. I am sorry. That should not be. It's just, I'd be like, I honestly didn't apply just because I was like, that just seems so vain to just be like, oh, I think I'm great. I'm going to nominate myself for homecoming court and hope people vote for me. It should be some kind of process. This goes into voting. This is a political show. We need some kind of system here. Whether it's your club and your group nominates one person and then the whole student body kind of votes off of that, I don't know, but something has to be changed because I am tired of people nominating themselves for homecoming, and then of course you have 25 girls versus 10 guys. Because the guys, come on, they're not going to nominate themselves for homecoming court. But anyway, that's going to about wrap us up here today on the Waynesburg Effect, but make sure you tune in next time for more political debates.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.